Alright, so welcome back to TNN, Trinity News Network. Today we're going to discuss an issue we've been talking about, and it's about a white student union that was formed at Towson University by this senior there named Matthew Heimbach. And there's some different opinions on this issue. There's a lot of people are up in arms about the saying it's racist, and this guy is a racist, and he's a white supremacist. But then, there's also the question that, how, there's black student unions, so why can't there be white student unions, and that type of thing. So we're going to discuss a few questions here today. Tucker, you want to start us off here?
Actually, I think Mr. Mike is going to start.
Mr. Mike. So racism is, on an institutional level, can be defined as a system of dominance and oppression that is race-based. Then on an individual level, it can be split up into discrimination and prejudice. Discrimination is harmful or negative acts against people on the basis of their race or ethnicity, and prejudice is a judgment of people based on their race or ethnicity. So, do you think all the backlash the white student unit is facing is an example of reverse racism?
I'd like to take that one first. I think on an individual level, yes, it is a example of reverse racism because there's negative connotation with the union just because of it being a white student union. They're really just focusing on the race of the union, not what they're trying to do or their I don't know how to say it, like their intentions. But what? Yes. And then on the institutional level, it's not reverse racism because I think there's really no oppression against the white student. Okay.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that for sure. Especially on the on the individual level, this could be an example of reverse racism because, the students there, wherever they go, they're being, especially in this white student union, they're being threatened, they feel threatened just because they're white, because the ethnic community is seeing them as racist just because they're white. So that's how I see that on an individual level.
The other side of this would just be that, the white race group doesn't need a student union because they're the majority, so they don't lack representation. So that would be the cause for the backlash, and that sort of makes sense. But at the same time, they shouldn't be, seen as bad just because they're trying to band together under their race, just like black people do. So I'll pose the next question. As a positive consequence, could the white student union be an example of social capital?
Absolutely.
Which means basically, social or networking between, different people that were in that union.
I think absolutely it works the same way as any alumni group would. So if what we're talking about, if a guy who was part of the union goes and gets a good job, and he saw a resume from somebody who put that union on their resume versus somebody who didn't, my guess is he'd be more likely to help out the person in the same group as him.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, somewhat, it's kind of a weird way to think about it, but I think for sure it could be a form of social capital because, someone who is an alumni of this white student union goes on and, is in a position where they're hiring people, and if they see someone who is also in the white student union or was in the white student union, I think that there's a connection there that could help out with jobs or whatnot. So yeah, for sure, I think it could be a form of social capital.
Yeah, it's just like any other group, a fraternity, a sports team. It's just a common theme that everyone shares, so it definitely benefits them in the longer run. They'll have the advantage in any opportunity afterwards.
So could you say this is a negative thing just because white people already have this advantage? So why do they need this like for now they just have a further advantage.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think this white student union is like essentially barring black people from it, or like I think that they're all for the advocation of European heritage. So if someone who is of African American heritage, and they still want to be an advocate for European heritage, I think they can be in the group as well. So.
And I think if you look at it, it's also not barring black groups from creating a similar.
I mean, there is.
They already
Right,
exist.
right,
They already exist. So I
yeah.
don't see really what the difference is there,
Mm-hmm.
other than of course the white people are already
Yeah.
sort of the majority
Mhm.
on campus.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll ask the next question then. And do you think that mass incarceration has any effect on the racial profiling in the night patrols that the White Student Union conducts?
Yeah, for sure. I think it does have an effect on the racial. Yeah, I mean, this white student union. What I think what angers most people is the night patrols that they're conducting, where they're essentially targeting black crime on the Towson campus. So, and I think that we talked a lot about the mass incarceration in class, and how the percentage of African Americans proportional in the jail system is like astounding compared to any other race. So, and I think that does add to the racial profiling that, okay, well, there's that many, black people in prison, so maybe all black people, like a black person may be a criminal or something like that. So I think has an effect on the racial profile.
If you look at it, I mean, it's clear, like, if you look at our history, if you look at our past, like, with mass incarceration especially, there's the tendency for white people to racially profile, based on the amount of African Americans that are in, the prison system. So this would kind of just put white people in general, rather than just authorities, in a position where they can do this further, and further, because it's kind of making, this is kind of like a radical view of it, but it could kind of make this white student union could kind of bring back thoughts of white people thinking that they're superior to other races.
For sure. All right, and we're back. You were saying?
All right. As I was saying before, I think it's stereotyping a certain race group, and it's really thinking because of their race that they're more likely to do the crime, but it's never really proven that blacks or Latinos commit more crimes. It's maybe they're just prosecuted more for it.
I'm going off of that. You can say, or you can see how mass incarceration would make many people think that a Latino or African American would be more likely to commit a crime than a white person. Looking at the group being the white student union, they're looking out for white people. So it kind of does make sense that they would be looking at black people. They're not trying to, catch white people in the act of a crime. They're looking out for white people.
They're more,
You know what I
they're
mean?
more inclined to blame other races than
Yeah,
white
they're
people.
looking out for the rights of
Yeah.
white people, so it does make sense. But mass incarceration definitely gives people the idea that you're more likely to be a criminal.
If you are
Different.
of a minority background, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. All right, so for the next question here, do you think that there is a conflict theory present in this scenario, where the media is reproducing assumptions and framing the arguments of the white student union? And to start, I think there is for sure, some framing here, in the sense that, the media is trying to frame the arguments of the white student union to be racist, while the group, the leader here, Matthew Heimbach, does a really good job of being not saying anything racist and being politically correct. So he doesn't sound inherently racist, but but I think the media has a history of framing things. Like you look at Fox News and MSNBC, they always try and frame the words of the other political party that is that they're like wrong or whatnot. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I also agree with what you're saying. I think media could choose what information they want to put there. So I mean, they may not have used the whole interviews, and they may have cut certain things out to frame it in a way that, they want their viewers to think. Like, if they're the only one there, they're gonna provide information that they want the people to think, oh, this group is racist, or this is what their intentions are, even though it may not be the group's actual intentions.
And I definitely agree. If you look at the article itself, they have a quote from Matthew that says, the only words quoted from him are black predators. So you don't really get a feel for what he's actually saying. All you hear is very negative, words coming in, black predator. And even describing him, they said, he looks like somebody who's been bullied his whole life. I don't really know what relevance that has to the argument other than to put more negative spin.
Right. I mean, he looks like he has like a chip on his shoulder that he has something to prove.
Why does that matter?
Yeah,
In this situation, it's just more negative.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm gonna have to disagree with all three of you guys. I'm just saying, like, I think there is definitely not conflict theory in this because the WSU is racist, and he says they talk about how they want to have a white ethno state, and I mean, I don't know how you can get around not thinking that's racist, because if you want a state that is presenting white people as the superior race, then that's automatically gonna cause imbalance.
It's a good point.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's tough to get around there. So you want to take on the last
Yeah,
question?
I'll take the last question. So do you think the White Student Union has any argument for nativism, which is the policy of protecting the interests of native-born or established inhabitants against immigrants? And I think they do not have any argument for nativism, simply because they're not the native race or ethnicity of this country. So, they basically came in here, colonized and told the people to assimilate, and therefore they can't really argue for nativism. They kind of created their own, society.
Yeah, I think there is an argument for nativism. I mean, white people aren't the natives of the U.S., but I think the group also shows that it's a native European whites. So I mean, there is nativism there, and that's like a binding, common thing. But also I think it's defined as established inhabitants against immigrants, and I think if you look at history, the Europeans have been here since the 1600s, and they are the majority now. The white population is the clear majority in the United States. So there could be an argument for nativism.
I mean, looking back on both your responses, I kind of agree with both of you. While the native population was not the white Europeans, they came in and took over, and then how they've been in power for so long. If you look at America, kind of what it was founded on, it was supposed to be a country of immigration where people would come and escape. It was supposed to be the melting pot, everything. The cultures from all over the world would come together. And I think if you look at this through that lens as it being nativism, it kind of definitely disadvantages some people, the minority groups, and it kind of bars them from being a real part of the country, and that's definitely not what the country was founded on.
Yeah, I'm gonna say that I think the White Student Union cannot argue for nativism simply because there weren't the natives. I think Native Americans are called Native Americans because they are the natives, and also African Americans weren't really. I wouldn't really consider them immigrants because they weren't really brought here. They didn't come here voluntarily. They were brought via slaves.
Yeah.
So I think it's tough to call them immigrants as well. So, I think that I don't think that they can support nativism in their argument. So you guys anything else to add or not?
I think that wrapped it up pretty well.
Yeah. So I think we try and do a good job here of bringing both sides of the argument here. Still an issue to debate. So you're entitled to your own opinion. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. So that's it for TNN, the Trinity News Network. We'll see you next time.
Stay classy.